Board meeting for April the 21st, 2026. Today is Tuesday. Let's have a roll call
Ms. Harris,
here.
Ms. Allard. Here. Ms. Beck. Ms. Crane. Here. Mr. Harris.
Here.
Ms. Kemper. Here. Ms. Peel.
Here.
Mr. Pusateri.
Here.
And Mr. Rippey.
Here.
100%.
Do we have a quorum?
Yes, we do.
We have 100%, guys. All right, let's move on to our announcements. We have our public comment period, and we're going to turn it over to Elizabeth.
Sure. As a reminder, people who wish to address the board should sign up with Vicki Buckman at buckman@lmha1.org by noon, the day of the board meeting. Folks who are watching, who are unable to make it, can always submit their comments, of course, in writing to Vicki at that email address I mentioned. We have one person signed up to comment, Miss Rose Tyus. Rosetta? Yeah, come on up. Do you want to come to the microphone here? Miss Rosetta, you'll have 3 minutes. Okay.
We lost two rhythms, and we were able to replace those. Someone else brought them. We had one that was foreclosed on, and the city ended up buying it, a little house. We didn't buy into Section 8. We didn't buy into government housing. This was supposed to be for first-time homeowners. None of us intended to be in government housing, and that's what we are. The choices were either the same or stay there and live in government housing. Those were our choices. So after that, the housing authority sent letters out to all the homeowners, want us to get all crazy, and they would buy the condos, and that's what they did. Once that one was sold to them, everybody else got scared. We don't want to live in government housing, so the other 6 sold to the housing authority. I'm here. It's been 35 years. We've got people that haven't paid a condo fee in over 20 years. In 2015, I hired an attorney, and we had several meetings. That's when we found out one tenant owed $20,000, one owed about $17,000, and one owed about $11,000. We have yet to receive payments from these people. There's nothing being done to collect these payments. They put a lien on their home, but that does no good. They've been had a lien for over 20 years, but they still haven't wrote a check, so that lien doesn't mean anything to them. I got letters from my attorney and from you all's attorney, Mr. Nish. Last year, he offered to buy mine. They offered to buy my unit. I don't owe anybody anything. I pay my condo fee on time. I don't think I should be the one that have to move. The ones that haven't paid a condo fee in 20 years, those are the ones that should not be there. Someone else should be in that place paying those condo fees so we can get things that we need done. February, the day before Super Bowl, a water pipe busted in my backyard. Lucretia has pictures. It looks like a bomb went off in my backyard. My backyard has been destroyed, 3/4 of my backyard. I have nothing. I don't have a bush. I don't have grass. They did not come back and cover the holes completely up. I called them 3 weeks later. The manager didn't know anything back.
Ms. Tyus, your time is up.
See, that's what I'm talking about.
Ms. Tyus, so we have several members of senior leadership here, I'm going to suggest if it would be okay with you, if they could meet with you out here to get some more information, and we'll follow up with you. And then if you have additional information, we're happy to pass that along in writing to the board as well. So Lucretia, John, and Eric, can you chat with Ms.? Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for coming. That's the only person we have signed up for public comment.
All right, thank you so much, Elizabeth. Thank you, Ms. Hyde. Let's move on to our committee reports. Do we have any committee reports today? Okay. Now we're gonna have the approval of our minutes. This was our regular board meeting that was held on March the 17th, 2026. May I have a motion to approve? May I have a second? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Now we're going to move on to our resolutions for today. 5A. Approval of revisions to the public housing admissions and continued occupancy policy. May I have a motion to approve? Which one was it? All right, who would like to second? All right, thank you. Ready for discussion?
Okay, we periodically bring a resolution to you all that updates our public housing admissions and continued occupancy policy, which we call our ACOP. We usually bring it to you in April of the year. And what we've done basically is go back through the policy and make sure that we are up to date with all of the latest HUD regulations, any new statutes, executive orders, that kind of thing. So this year, we don't have any huge changes to report to you. One thing that we have done is to expand our homeless admissions preference. We currently give an admissions preference to every fourth eligible household, so every fourth person on our wait list, which we will continue to do. But up until now, we have only accepted referrals from the Family Health Center's Common Assessment Team, and we'll be opening up that pool so that we can accept referrals from Louisville Metro Government or off of our waiting list, whoever's in the most need of housing. I think that's the biggest one. We are also, it says in here, I know I got some questions about eliminating the $7,500 earned income deduction for elderly families. That's something that you all approved when we approved the last annual plan. We're just operationalizing it now. We only had a handful of families who took advantage of that earned income disregard, literally under 10 every year. So we just decided it wasn't worth the administrative burden of continuing to offer the. Anybody have questions?
The only question that I had on this one in particular, that $7,500, was that originally in our plan that we submitted to HUD and HUD approved it already?
Yes, so that has been in our plan for many years, and it just has never really been used. I mean, 5 people would use it a year, 6 people. It just wasn't worth the administrative burden of continuing it.
But has this already been submitted, or is this something you're asking us to approve before you submit us taking it out?
It's already been submitted in the annual plan. We're
Okay.
just now putting it into effect by adding it to the ACOP.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Any other comments? All right, we're ready for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, resolution 5A is now approved. Moving on to resolution 5B. Approval of FY 2027 Move to Work Annual Plan. May I have a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
It's been motioned and second, ready for discussion.
All right, we also come to you every April with our annual Moving to Work plan. This is something that we are required to submit to HUD every year. It basically tells them what flexibilities we are going to use with our MTW program over the coming fiscal year. As a senior leadership team, we have been going through a really in-depth process to look at how we use MTW and kind of starting from the beginning in terms of what we want to do with the program. So we've left this year's changes very simple, knowing that we'll come back to next year with a lot more discussion and bigger changes, most likely. So these changes are fairly small. Are there any that you had questions about?
Do we have any questions?
I just have a question. I get kind of confused with like the acronyms and stuff. What is that? What is the moving to work program? Is that its own separate thing? Or is it like inclusive of a lot of different programs?
Okay, so it's called Moving to Work, but it actually has nothing to do with moving to work. It's the first thing.
Moving or
Yeah,
work.
that confused me.
It is a pilot program that we joined way back in 1999 that allows a small number of public housing authorities in the country to waive federal regulations. It also allows us to put our money in one big pot, kind of, so that we can spend public housing money on Section 8 and Section 8 money on public housing. So every year we submit a plan that basically says, here are the federal regulations we want to waive. And so what's listed here are the changes to that list of federal waivers, basically.
Okay, and so when you're talking about like the home ownership program, and things like that, that's part of that?
Yes,
moving to
so,
work?
for example, in the homeownership program, under typical regulations, a working family can only be on the homeownership program for 15 years. And that's how it was at the housing authority forever. Recently, though, we tried using MTW to expand that time frame to 30 years. But what we're saying now is we're going to go back to the 15 years that's in the regulation. And that's mainly because we found that keeping people on the program for 30 years didn't allow us to turn over vouchers. So we weren't able to accept new people onto the homeownership program the way we wanted to.
Okay, my next question is with that is, I know through the homeownership program, if you like somehow have to utilize a voucher for an apartment again, you're no longer utilizing the homeownership program. You can like utilize, say you have 5 years left of that time. You go back into the homeownership program and you start from there. Is that still there or is it just 15 years that you're able to be in that program, no matter if there's a separation?
So Camille, you might be able to answer this one better than I am. If you end up selling your home, you can go back into our rental program, correct? But I don't know what happens if you go home ownership to rental back to home ownership. That's the question.
But that's a better question yet. I don't think that there's a restriction on that. We don't have any restrictions on whether or not you re-enroll the program. I think what you might run into though, would not necessarily qualify for some buyer incentives. So I don't know if it would be advantageous that way, but I think your incentives will all go away. But as far as the council and the board, I think there's always something. But I don't think we've ever gonna have.
On the same subject, so I know that HUD, is this retroactive or just go forward? Like people who joined the program under 30 years, it's like, well, now it's 15.
If you signed a contract that said 30 years, we will honor the 30 years.
And then. I think that probably solves most of the problems. Do people typically increase their income so that they are no longer eligible? Like, is that what the data says? You know, how many has been like 400 homes the program is posted on? So like typically people do increase their income and just become self-sufficient and roll off the voucher, or like, is that not the case? Because you mentioned that you weren't able to extend the vouchers to else. So people really are staying on the voucher.
Right. Camille, do you have any insight into that?
I would say that for the most part, you know, we would like to believe that people do, you know, eventually get to an income where they're what we would call zero half, right? So they would get to the point where they might still be in the program because that was the way their finance structure was already built up. But it may be that they're putting all their money towards their half expenses, so they're paying everything, but they're still in the program just because of the finance structure, the way it's set up at the beginning, unless they did a refinance, right? So the only way you would be able to break that is if you got a refi. and then you no longer needed our voucher. But the two questions, to answer your question is how many people might do that? I'm not quite sure. I don't think that that's a metric that we've ever even tracked. As far as, I mean, like, I can tell you how many of our homeownership families are at zero half.
Explain that.
Zero housing assistance payment.
So they're reviewed in some regular
Yes,
period, and if they have their income has gone up to the point they don't need the
they don't get
assistance,
assistance.
they give them a zero half, but they're still, if it went down, their next review, they can get it again.
Yes,
So they
Like
stay
they
in
would
the
pay out.
program.
yes, they would stay in the program unless they refinance their mortgage.
Or unless they said they didn't want voucher.
Yes, they can turn. You don't have to be a part of the program.
So do you think that a lot of the people are at zero half?
I would say that,
No.
I would say the majority of our people are not at zero half. Because we pay a lot of half now. For housing, so we use, our housing, our homeownership voucher has a higher payment standard than everyone else because of the need to be able to cover a mortgage.
And
It's a
so
little higher.
will this impact their ability to get a mortgage? Will a mortgage lender say, well, I'm not going to do this because I'm still going to make it?
I don't think so, because it
No.
was 15 years until
Right.
very recently.
That's
And the HUD regulation is 15 years. So
Okay.
every other housing authority that's doing a homeownership program with their Section 8 is doing the 15
I
years.
thought it was,
Yeah.
people, that was what was in my mind, but I saw 30.
I believe this change the change to 30 was made like in my tenure at LMHA. So it was a very narrow window where that was 30 years. Right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, very narrow window, and now we're just going back to.
I have another question. So is this, putting this back to 15 years and presenting this to HUD, is this like in hopes that you all open back up the homeownership program and allow it to more people, or?
Well, I seem to be turning to you a lot. I'm gonna turn to you again.
well, the hope is that we would like to be able to offer the services to, other people in the future. Right now, we can't do that. I can't say that this is gonna help us, in the next year or so, but it will definitely help us be able to serve more people. Future, so that is the hope. Is that, and ultimately what we want is to give them the ability to start into ownership. Goal is to help people to transition into self-sufficiency, fully being able to operate their own. So, and we're also, building in more supports around case management. I think we're being a little more intentional about how we deliver the program.
That would be interesting if they have assistance for quality or they might go to. Would you go to pay the special, okay, so.
But
well, whoever
I'm
it's-
over the special programs now, so. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it's a great thing for us to start to track when we take in people, project a part of. Seeing like where we are, but. And I'll be more than happy to report that maybe in our report,
Yeah, like of the 400 homes or 400 plus homes, how many is, what is that actually? What is it, how many foreclosed, like what
Mhm.
really happened?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can get that together, I think for next month's report. It's also 500.
It's 500.
Yeah.
The little sample size. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll look at like, the outcomes, who moved back to renter, who was for, I don't think that was very high. Yeah. Yeah, good question.
That's good. And then one day, hopefully, we can do a trend.
Yeah.
And we can see how it's going, right?
Hopefully we will be
Because
getting new
what-
people in there.
Yeah, and I would love to see, the reason why I like trending data is because it shows the impact of the program, right? How people are coming along, are we helping them get to that self-sufficiency piece that we're really looking for our client, call them our clients, our residents. So no, I think all of this would be wonderful. I totally agree. And I look forward to that report on next month. Thank you.
What's the mark for getting it open?
Money.
Is there a point at which you'll Is there dollars a
Yes.
year or something we're looking at?
So we will come to you next month with an in-depth, our budget presentation. So next month we'll need to do our audit finance committee meeting and then we'll present to you about the budget. But as you know, as we've talked about, and as we move on to our next resolution, we are in a significant shortfall in Section 8. As you know, Section 8 supports the homeownership program, and in the past, when our program was smaller, we were not serving the number of residents that we were supposed to serve according to our statutory mandate. But we typically in the past had a big surplus in Section 8 that we then used to kind of plug the deficit in the rest of our portfolio, because we have this moving to work flexibility that most public housing authorities don't have. Most public housing authorities have to spend this money here, this money here. It's very constrained. We have a bigger bucket. So for years, we've been plugging holes in our central office cost center, which is like our overhead essentially, and then our public housing program using the Section 8 surplus. We no longer have that Section 8 surplus. So our deficit is very large. We're working very hard to trim that down and to increase other revenue sources. But until we are out of shortfall for Section 8, we're not going to be able to issue new vouchers, whether that's for homeownership or renters. What could turn that around is, one, our program right sizes through attrition, which is our current model, and other changes that we're making based on your approval today, hopefully, and in the future. And then also if we were to get a better HUD budget passed by Congress, that's another way we can get out of that hole. But I mean, it was very painful to pause issuing tenant-based vouchers. Homeownership program was paused at the same time. I mean, that's been a very painful thing they have to do. Right. Okay.
Right. Any
All
more
right.
questions?
All right, if all of our questions have been answered, we're ready for the vote. All those in favor of approving resolution 5B, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, resolution 5B is now approved. Moving on to resolution 5C, approval of revisions to the Housing Choice Voucher Program Administrative Plan. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All right, it's been motioned and second, ready for discussion.
Good afternoon, members of the board. I'm Jonathan Holter. I'm the ACV director here for Local Metro Housing. Today, I'm presenting a series of administrative plan updates to our Housing Choice Voucher Program. As you may recall, many of these changes were introduced and discussed last month as part of our MPW plan. But today we're bringing them forward after the public comment period for the administrator. These updates are driven by increasing housing costs, limited federal funds, and the need to maintain long-term program stability while continuing to serve our program participants. First, we are proposing the implementation of a $50 minimum rent for the participants to take effect after next recertification. Second, we are recommending the elimination of utility reimbursement payments effective July 1st, 2026. Third, we are proposing a reduction in the medical expense deduction threshold to $500. Next, we are eliminating the $7,500 earned income deduction for elderly families as previously outlined. This is not a federally required deduction. We are also transitioning from the HQS or housing quality standards to the national standards for physical inspection of real estate. This is called an Inspire. This is a HUD directed change that modernizes inspection protocols and gathers greater emphasis on health and safety. And finally, we are updating our waiting list preference structure. This includes assigning a point value for tenants based off it could be a homeless, it could be elderly, disabled, local. So basically there's a point value system there. In summary, these changes reflect the same policy discretion presented in our MTW plan or that are necessary for the long-term stability of our program. While some of these adjustments may be challenging, they position us in continuing serving families within our federal constraints. I'm happy to answer any questions. Yes, ma'am.
Resolution 5A at the top says about the $500 medical reductions. LMHA decided to withdraw the proposal.
That's for the public
That's
housing side.
Housing, not for HCD.
So it will be for HCD, but not.
Yes, ma'am.
wanna know why?
Yes.
Okay.
So this was a, yes, so this is going to be a cost saving measure in section 8. It would not save money in section 9 public housing because if we were to adjust tenant rents upward with this change in public housing, the amount of subsidy we got from HUD would go down concurrently. So it would be a wash. We are also not instituting the other changes from the section 8 proposals that Jonathan's walking through to the public housing side. So it also would not eliminate administrative burden because we're still administering those programs separately. So I do anticipate in the future, we would talk about instituting some of these changes here for section 8 to public housing, but we want to do those all at the same time so that administratively it's handled the same at both programs. Does that make sense? Okay.
And I guess my only question is, why are we changing from the HQS to the Inspire?
So that's something that HUD has basically recommended that we do. They've kind of delayed it several times. But it's a inspection protocol that HUD they're basically formatting all of their type of inspection. So you got REAC, UPCS, and HQS. It now puts it all under one type of inspection.
Oh, I like that. We used to have several types of inspections back in the day when I
Yes.
did all of this. So, yeah, that's
So,
wonderful.
so yeah, so I mean, it's an adjustment period for our landlords, but overall, like, we've been doing this since March and it has not been too bad.
I always thought that the HQ was a little bit more intensive than the other types of inspections. So to me, is this gonna save on personnel cost and all of that too, or not?
So we have already negotiated the contract with codes and enforcement, and we was able to save some money there.
I believe
lot
it.
of- yeah.
I believe you all save money on that.
Yeah.
Because I used to work for Metro and I remember the dollars were more to do those
Yeah.
types of inspections, those HQS
So
inspections.
we're right now in an adjustment period with codes and enforcement. They're learning the new inspection protocol. We've been working closely with them on it. So
Very good.
I think they like everything, they're trying to learn the changes of it.
Mhm.
But so far it's been pretty successful. So
Thank you.
yes, ma'am.
With your wait list preference structure, is it similar or the same as some of the changes that, like, with the preference for, homeless or about to be homeless, and where they can be turned from?
So that is, you're talking about some of our special friends. So some of that, like the mainstream stuff, those were bypasses of our waiting list. This is actually people that have signed up on the waiting list. And so you could have a local preference, you could have elderly or disabled preference. So that's sort of two different things there.
Beautiful. Anyone else have any questions? Comments? All right, we're ready for the vote. All those in favor of resolution 5C, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Resolution 5C is passed. Moving on to resolution 5D, thank you. Authorization to submit 2714 Holly Park Drive to the Housing and Urban Development Special Application Center, that's HUD-SAC, for disposition approval. May I have a motion, please? May I have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been motion and second, ready for discussion.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Pam Bischoff, Director of Strategic Initiatives here at LMHA. 2714 Holly Park Drive is a property we have been struggling internally with for several years about how to deal with some of the deficiencies there that are described here in this document and that I'll talk about a little bit more. It's a small property, a scattered site. It is 45 units in 8 separate buildings. An inspection, and we purchased the property in 2017. The property has severe drainage issues. All of the buildings are on open crawl spaces, essentially in a swamp is really the best way that I can describe that. And so there's been a lot of water intrusion underneath the buildings, resulting in high levels of mold, deterioration of foundation decks, and subfloors. In 2019, we had our environmental firm go out and do a full inspection of the property and found there to be unacceptable levels of mold at 75% of the units. And under the statement of facts, you can read that description. This included growth on gypsum board walls, ceilings, bathroom vanities, HVAC closets, and subflooring. And in some cases, mold was confirmed from samples taken from interior finishes and as well as resident furnishings. So given these conditions through voluntary moves, we started to relocate families to the better side of the property. There are kind of two sets of buildings. One was more in the moister areas of the property than the other. And then last year, we did go ahead and institute emergency moves to relocate the remaining families from that property. So it is now vacant. So it's been vacant since about September of last year, at which time we were going through the process to get the property appraised. This has been a very difficult process as well. And any of you all who've been through appraisals know that it is not just looking at the property for what it is right there and the condition that it's in. It's also looking at the work that's needed to bring it back up to livable standards. What's the best and highest use of the property, and also how much income can the property generate? And all of those things go into a final appraised value, of which we were still struggling to get. We did send a contractor out to the property several weeks ago to get us some estimates on different levels of rehab of the property, from just, basic light rehab up to a full rehab in order to get that appraised amount. 2 days later, the building caught fire. 2 of the buildings caught fire. So we are still in a place where we're not able to come to a value of the property, which is why it's not in here. We would normally have that information here for you and say that we would, be seeking fair market value for any disposition of this property. At this time, regardless of what happens with the insurance and that in the fire department's reports and things like that, there is no scenario in which we can move anyone back to this property. And so there's no scenario really in which LMHA can continue to own the property. There are many options which we might explore should we have an insurance claim, where we might receive funds. And even in that scenario, at a very bare minimum, we would dispo the property to like our development arm and kind of go from there. So, there's just so many unknowns. We know one way in order to do anything with the property, we must submit to the Special Application Center to get HUD's approval to dispose of it and take it out of the Section 9 public housing program. And so that is what this resolution is for. I am happy to answer any questions. There's a lot of details we do not know yet. So please forgive me, but I'll do the best I can.
Yeah, I think that we're looking for Park.
It's near there. It's in a great area of town, but no one can live there.
So was it a flood zone? It was in a flood zone?
I don't know if technically it was a flood zone.
Is that what, because that was the
Almost like a
moisture.
moat.
It's really drainage issues on the site, on that particular site
Okay.
that we're not, we've had estimates from,
I'm kind
I
of.
think a couple years ago, we were looking at $13 million. Michelle, is that about right? To rehab the whole property.
Okay, there was 8 buildings and 45 residents. And so 2 of the buildings are affected, is that right?
2 of the buildings we believe to be a total loss, and
Okay.
it could end up being more. By the fire.
So, okay, so, 2 of the buildings are affected, is that right?
Two of the buildings we believe to be a total loss, and it could end up being more. By the fire.
Okay. So, 2 of the buildings are affected, is that right? Okay. And you're asking for the disposition of the two bills.
We're asking for the
The entire
disposition of the
site, okay.
entire site.
Okay, so here's what's concerning to me. In 2019, you know that the thing is full of mold. It's not until 2025, 6 years later, that those properties are totally vacated. So people have lived for 6 years in unsafe, unhealthy, potentially fatal conditions. I mean, if I built a house and it has mold in it, people are going crazy and seeing doctors, and every ailment that they have now is attributed to the mold that they discovered in their house. I would be, I'd like to know why this wasn't handled with more urgency to get people out of an unhealthy living situation.
So the voluntary relocations, do you remember when those started? Offering people relocation assistance and relocation into other properties or to Section 8, that was offered many years ago. It wasn't until last year, there were, I think, 8 remaining residents, and we did emergency transfers for them. They were, as Pam said, on a side of the property that was drier. I haven't seen the environmental reports from those buildings, but everybody was given the option to leave. And frankly, didn't want to. So we had to come in and say, you have to go. This is not safe. You have to go. But the sense of the lack of urgency, the fact that no one was beating down my door when I got here to say, you got to go look at this property is extremely concerning. We have had many conversations internally at all levels to make sure that people understand that's not acceptable. And if at any level you see something like that, you say something. It's your job to raise your hand. The CID team had plans to try to rehab the property. I think that was put out to bid most recently in 22 or 20. Mhm. Yeah. So I don't want to make excuses because it's not acceptable. And we need everybody to know that's not acceptable and to say something when they see that happening. And also, it's true that we offered to relocate every single person. And that we attempted to get contractors in to help repair the property.
Okay, so. Yeah, sometimes people, like a person living in a home that's gonna flood and could potentially be killed, and they say, we just want to stay. And then later on, when the flood comes in, they don't want to stay. If these people have health issues down the road, I see where some of them might be coming back. But my next question would be, is there any other buildings we own that have mold in them that we're not addressing or we're not aware of that present unhealthy living conditions?
We have full reports on all kinds of environmental hazards in our property. They are very well controlled. When we become aware of suspected mold, if it's not something that we could treat in-house, we call our environmental contractor to come do testing. And then if it needs to be abated, we bring in a contractor to abate it. So I believe and others correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we have a good handle on the health and safety of our units. They are inspected internally with the Inspire inspection standards that we talked about earlier. Annually, they're inspected annually by HUD, and our environmental contractor looks at lead, mold, radon, I believe.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I'll piggyback on with the mold specifically, we have shifted to try to where we know that mold is more likely to grow to put in preventative measures to that. So it's starting with the simple as we had 3,000 magnets printed up. If you live in LMHA public housing, it tells you how to prevent mold, area results panel. And then at Parkway Place, where the corner units in many of the buildings tend to grow mold. There's a whole host of environmental reasons for that. Every unit term, we are installing mold resistant, instead of the drywall which grows the mold in the bathroom, we're installing a mold resistant I think I should not remember the term for this, but it basically plastic, so that the mold can grow on there and using mold resistant paint. And we're putting the light and the exhaust fan on the same switch, so you can not have the exhaust fan on and create the mold growing conditions. So we are trying to get ahead of mold growth. But also, as Elizabeth said, always, once we know that the mold has, I want to say over 9 square feet, is a life-threatening inspired standard, where we're addressing that, relocating residents and taking care of it. Either internally for the small jobs or using a licensed contractor.
That's good that you're doing all that. Of the contracts that we've approved recently, have any of them have been for an environmental? I don't recall.
Yes, it was, what month was that? Do you remember that we brought? CPAC? I think January.
So CMAQ is who would make the assessments and make the recommendations, and then we have 2 different abatement contracts. I want to say that was.
So this January was, it's our abatement contractors, which is AST and NEC, and I believe CMAC is a renewal job. And then that's our.
There one election go in.
That's right.
Yes, yes, and then we always, we put eyes on every single unit, every single year for an internal inspired inspection. And then depending on if there is mold, which sometimes things look like mold that aren't. But if there is suspected mold-like substance is what the deficiency is called, then it's how much of there is there. That's whether or not it's moderate, severe, or life-threatening deficiency. So severe life-threatening is a 24-hour we're in there within the next day to try to assess, can we do this internally? If it's that much mold, the answer is probably no. And then we have a very good responsive, these are some of our best contractors, to be honest, in terms of response time, is CMAQ. I've talked to Suzanne, that's our main point of contact at CMAQ. I've talked to her twice today. So we're constantly, we take the environmental stuff very seriously. I mean, don't get me wrong, I can understand why you're saying 6 to 7 years, what are you talking about, you take it seriously. Our present day standard operating procedure when it comes to environmental, mold included, is much less, we're on it much quicker, so.
I mean, I can't speak to 422, we're not here, but I know when I came in 22, and this was when the property that we were looking at, trying to get somebody in there to take care of. There was very few occupied units, even in 22. So the people that were still there, and I probably got that number, but it wasn't like there was 45 units that had mold in it. There was very few units that clear. Yes.
My only thing would be when mold comes up, alarm bell can be going on.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You know, this is not something we can get to next month. You have to get on it.
And it's being mentioned, like, one side of the property was actually better than the other. One side of the property was built down, all the water running down, and that's just kind of where it lives. The other side of the properties, that water intrusion comes when a heavy rain would come, because there is an empty like culvert right there, and it would overflow. So it wasn't a constant water problem on that side, so those units were much better. Good one. So.
And then we are also putting in for I want to say the deadline's early next month, for a environmental, grant through HUD with, and the details we've listed relate to those parkway bathroom unit terms I discussed. And then also our 550 property, which has a PTAC up in the ceiling that they can roll on, replacing those as well. So we're asking HUD for grant money to make permanent fixes to mold problems we know we would constantly address.
All right.
Fingers crossed.
Well, we really appreciate, the discussion on this, but in a matter of time, does anyone else have any other questions? Do you have any concern?
Really
Okay.
quick one.
Okay.
How did they catch fire? Was there
We don't know.
you don't know?
We
It
do
was-
know that there were recyclers.
Okay, okay.
But we don't know. The fire department
Yeah,
has
that's
said they
curious.
probably would not know. But they have submitted their initial report.
But there's been an
So
investigation.
that it's not complete, but we're submitting all the information that's been requested of us and.
No one was hurt.
To get to a determination. That's right.
Okay.
And you can't force moves until it's been submitted and approved for this position, right? Like we did with Oscar, or like at what point can you start to force?
We did an emergency transfer process out of Holly Park. You can't do a mandatory relocation until you have that section 18 approval, like we did with Oscar. But, you know, the voluntary moves were pretty successful out of there. And then when we started the emergency transfer, we had a robust relocation team, as you know, from Dosker, and they were deployed to Holly Park. And it was just a lot of conversations, a lot of hand holding. Our section 18 was very helpful. I think there were 8 units occupied. I can't remember how many got section 8, but several got a voucher to move. And some relocated to other LMHA properties. So it was really it was lucky that we had that relocation machine ready.
Thank you. I really appreciate the discussion around this. And I agree. We do have to make sure that we're handling the mold mitigation issues and things like that, because that is a health concern. All right. I appreciate all of the discussion around this. Are we ready for the vote at this point in time? All right, we're ready for the vote. All those in favor of resolution 5D, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Resolution 5D is now approved. Thank you all, and thank you for the discussion. At this time, we're going to go ahead and do our board briefing from the Executive Director, Elizabeth Strojan. Let's receive her at this time.
I have a very brief presentation and it's all good news. It's all good news this month. So I want to talk to, okay. Oops. I want to talk about our resident services that we're offering to residents. And this presentation this month is about how we're leveraging partnership with the city and nonprofit partners to bring additional and higher level resident services to our sites and to new residents. So as a reminder, the goals of our resident services or our special programs team, we want to stabilize our property, which means that folks have the supports that they need to remain stably housed. It's to help meet our mission, which is to house the most vulnerable people in our community. It's to bring resources to residents and to increase self-sufficiency. That means different things to different people. Self-sufficiency could mean that you remain stably housed with us forever. Self-sufficiency could mean that you no longer need us and you move off of assistance. So I want to talk about 2 different and complementary partnerships that we are embarking upon. We do not need your approval because guess what? It doesn't cost us any money. It's actually free, which is great. But I want to make sure that you all understand and are supportive of this before we, sign on any dotted lines, which we're prepared to do unless you tell me not to. I want to talk about Home for Good, which is the city's permanent supportive housing push, as well as a FACT program pilot that we're working on. I'll tell you what those mean. Can I see this? So I don't have to keep looking back. Thank you. Sorry, Richard.
It's okay.
Okay. Okay. So Home for Good is a Louisville Metro government initiative to bring permanent supportive housing in new ways to Louisville. It's about consolidating, standardizing, centralizing, and ramping up Louisville's permanent supportive housing. So permanent supportive housing is for people who are chronically homeless. Typically people that you see living on the streets or in encampments are good candidates for permanent supportive housing. And in 2024, which is the most recent year we have data available, there were 595 people identified as street homeless in Louisville. So the costs of street homelessness are huge, in addition to the huge humanitarian issues that come with folks living outside or living under bridges. It also strains emergency services, emergency rooms, law enforcement, things like that. There's impacts to safety. Basically, the costs are enormous. The cost of doing nothing are enormous. So the answer is permanent supportive housing, which is affordable housing, which is what we provide, but intensive on-site supportive services tailored to each person coming into the program. So the affordable housing, I think we know very well and understand very well. It's housing that's affordable to people who often have very little or no income. And that's where LMHA comes into this. But the permanent supportive services are things that we sometimes miss. So when we think about what happened at Dosker Manor, we had about a third of that site was referred from the continuum of care. So street homeless folks coming into that property without appropriate social services really led to serious security issues, safety issues, lease violations, to say the least. But when folks get housing first with the services that they need, they're much more stably housed and the properties are much more stably housed. So these services include things like mental health and behavioral health supports, community engagement, family reunification, meaningful daily activity, which I think we see on our properties is really important, addiction recovery, and physical health and wellness, employment where appropriate. So permanent supportive housing is focused first on housing, secondly, on health, stabilizing people health-wise, and third, helping to increase income, whether that means getting on disability and Medicaid or gaining employment. So historically in Louisville has a really high success rate for permanent supportive housing. 98% of individuals housed in permanent supportive housing stay there for at least 2 years. And LMHA has always been an important part of that permanent supportive housing. The reason that we're embarking on this effort as a city is because we, again, have to centralize, standardize, and really ramp it up because we clearly need more than we have. I mentioned earlier the cost of doing nothing. When you don't have permanent supportive housing, we're spending about $16,400 per person per year on emergency healthcare costs. So every dollar invested in PSH returns $1.80 in savings to other systems. So the city has committed their leadership. It's now being led out of the Mayor's Office of Behavioral Health, and the Mayor's Senior Housing Advisor are co-leading this initiative. They're coordinating a large task force. Of course, LMHA is at the table for all of this, and the Mayor is committing funding from the city's budget as well as really putting his weight behind a massive fundraising effort to help plug the gap in service dollars. So why am I giving you a crash course in permanent supportive housing? Well, LMHA is at the table to be a partner and to be a part of the solution for this permanent supportive housing push. So as you've heard today, we have a homeless preference for every 4th unit in our public housing. I'm not talking about Section 8 right now because we do not have new Section 8 to provide, but rest assured, every time you hear a permanent supportive housing building being opened, our vouchers are in there. We just can't commit new vouchers now, of course. So we're talking specifically about contributing our homeless preference units to this effort, which we would do anyway. We have a homeless preference. That's part of our mission and our mandate, what we do. This effort of the Home for Good initiative is going to pair homeless households coming out of whether it's camping court or identified by some other pathway to identify homeless individuals. And what the city is bringing is the case management by service provider partners. So the benefit to LMHA is that we're not only meeting our mission with the housing, but we have case management coming to the sites to make sure folks have what they need to stay stably housed. So after today's conversation, we're prepared to execute a memorandum of understanding with the Mayor's Office of Social Services so that they can begin providing case management as we begin taking referrals into our vacant units on our property. And we will continue to coordinate with our teams. This will involve special programs and our on-site resident service coordinators, our property management team, working closely with the case managers paid for by the Home for Good initiatives. Any questions on that piece?
You said 2 years.
They typically, so some folks stay longer. I think 2 years was just the length of that study that they did. Typically people in permanent supportive housing do need longer. There are people who move up and move out, but permanent supportive housing is really for people with severe mental illness. So that's, they typically have like co-occurring substance abuse issues. But as we know, just about everything can be treated, but you have to have access to the treatment. And typically when you start down that path of treatment, you need somebody checking on you to make sure you got your medicine. and to make sure you took your medicine and to make sure you have the resources to get the food that you got to eat when you take the medicine. So it's much more intensive. We are currently serving a lot of people that need that, but we don't have that. And we can't afford to do that on our own. It's not what we do. So what we're doing with this partnership with the city is making sure that as we're housing people that need to be housed and deserve to be housed and can be housed, they have the services they need to be stable. Typically, though, folks need permanent supportive housing for a long time. So self-sufficiency for somebody in permanent supportive housing probably looks like a very long-term stay, either with a voucher or with a unit with us.
How long, Mayor, committing funding?
So this has to be a forever thing, but the funding for now is to house 250 people by 2027. They have hit their fundraising goals, I believe, to serve, I can't remember how many people now, but they've housed about 60, not with us, but with our partners. The thing about the services is many of them are long-term Medicaid billable. But you have to have time to get people stable, get them enrolled in Medicaid, and then start billing Medicaid. So the long-term sustainability for this is not necessarily city funds or philanthropic dollars. The long-term sustainability comes from service dollars from HUD, should those become available again, and also Medicaid. And Kentucky has been very progressive in how they've used Medicaid to serve people like this with mental illness and housing.
So how many units are we committing? Are we committing units? Is
We're
that what
committing
you said?
units. Mhm.
Okay.
So we have made clear that 1 in 4 of our units is available for people who are homeless, and you all just approved our ability to expand that definition to include this pipeline of folks. So we have said that we will commit as many units to this effort as they have case managers available to appropriately serve. So we haven't set a specific number, but right now we have a lot fewer vacant units than we did a few months ago. Good job, team. But we have over 300 vacancies in our portfolio, and we have constant turnover. So every 1 in 4 would be available for this,
Good.
as long as there's case management services available.
And so the social services at Louisville Metro Government, they're going to be the case managers for these individuals.
So our first referrals will be case managed by the Metro government's case management team.
Okay.
We could also partner with other service providers. So the service providers that currently work with the COC include Volunteers of America. So they could potentially do some work with us, St. John's Center, and we will have MOUs with each service provider. The great thing about the Home for Good initiative is it's also overseen by the city, so that if we have an issue with the case manager or we feel like we need more intensive services here, we can call the city to get that taken care of. Yes.
Clustered together.
No. So the permanent supportive housing can be the scatter site model, which is what we're talking about here. Of course, we have more vacancies at some sites than others, so that might naturally lead to some clustering. But the scatter site model is, you're in your home, but people do come visit you. There's home visits with the case manager. So we would be contributing the scatter site model. Louisville also has congregate permanent supportive housing, which we need more of. And though even in a congregate PSH building, it typically wouldn't be 100% of the units that are permanent supportive housing. It's typically some permanent supportive housing units, some affordable units without those additional issues there.
Here, JAC, solar living, or like if you had so many units at Parkway Place, and if you're moving this population in, like it could work better if they were closer together. You know what I mean? For those that are in this particular program, like, I mean, again, some sites may not have the same issues as others.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chan.
I wanted to hear the questions first before I said anything, but I am so excited about this. Am I a little biased because I am with Mayor Greenberg's administration? Absolutely. But more so because prior to working for Mayor Greenberg, I worked for an organization called Community Solutions, which was, they got $100 million grant. This was 5 years ago to spend down on ending homelessness. So they're in a lot of different cities and they did a lot of internal studies. I was their federal policy advisor. And in the studies that we did, the cities that did the best in terms of ending homelessness and getting people into housing permanently, ongoing coordination between teams and adding case management were two of the biggest factors for success. So this is just very exciting. And it's just good to see in a time period where we know that science and, evidence-based practices are not always respected. It's just wonderful to see this, and it's wonderful. I think that LMHA is working to do this.
Thank you. We're so excited. And we looked recently at the camping court docket, which are folks who were cited for sleeping outside repeatedly. There was a big overlap between that list and our existing public housing waiting list. So this is, again, an opportunity for us to house those folks, to meet our mission, but to bring that case management to sites so that folks have what they need to stay there. Okay, so that is for new residents, super exciting. But as you know, we also have existing residents who need more support. So I'm very excited to tell you about another initiative called the FACT Program Pilot. We will work on branding for that, Pam. That's something we need to add to the list. FACT stands for Forensic Assertive Community Treatment. So this is like permanent supportive housing, but for people with maybe the most serious obstacles to housing stability. It brings behavioral health and mental health providers on site for very frequent check-ins with folks in their homes. So in the forensic component, obviously, is involvement with criminal justice system in the past. So we are working with Wellspring, Louisville Metro Department of Corrections, and the state's Correctional Psychiatric Center to bring a FACT team to Avenue Plaza. As you all know, we are soon embarking on a rehab of Avenue Plaza, which means we're going to fix the building and the units, but we also want to make sure that the folks living in there have what they need to stay healthy and housed. So we are starting with 10 existing residents at Avenue. All these folks have stayed at least one night in jail in their lifetime. That's the forensic component. We're offering intense case management services, focusing on mental and behavioral health, providing those services on site, and growing additional partnerships. So for example, we've had conversations with the family health centers to come bring a mobile van to provide primary care and other supports to folks at Avenue. And this has been a really wonderful example of the teams at LMHA working well together. We have resident service coordinators on site that are working with property management and our safety and security team to make lists of appropriate residents to refer, to get the word out about it. So we heard on a call yesterday, they've done intake with 4 and are prepared to move forward with 3 residents offering this service. So hopefully there will be much more to come on that. Again, we're not paying for these out of pocket. Of course, we're contributing staff time, but we would rather be contributing staff time to these efforts than efforts around evicting people for behavioral health issues or having to turn a unit because somebody couldn't make it in our housing. So any questions about these?
I love it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I
Well, I
love
thought we
it.
needed some good news.
Yes, this is great news.
Well, that's all I
How
got.
hard is it for a board member to get on the team?
For to
Saying,
receive or?
No, to be on the team.
Oh,
Let's talk about it.
please.
And to give other insight. When I was with Louisville Metro Government as the director of the Office of Resilience and Community Services at that time, we did have a team of like 76 individuals that came from the community to sit around the table and talk about those who were the hardest to serve, which are the individuals who are homeless for years. Not just they become homeless and then we get them off the street and they're okay. I'm talking about the ones who have been out there for years. So our hardest to serve individuals. So, you know, so businesses usually have a hard time with those types of individuals because, you know, it stifles business. They're at the doors, they're doing these types of things, falling out, you know, and all that. So when those things, when we had all of them at the table, some of them can become some of these philanthropists that we're looking for to help with the funding of this project. So those are the types of things that I'm looking at. You know, hospitals, you know, they're another thing because hospitals, according to the studies back when I was there, because I'm sure you all got better studies now, but some of the hospitals have found out that if they pay for housing for 1 year, it cut their cost by over half, if they just pay for someone to have housing. Because those individuals kept coming in for care and whatever they complained about, they had to run tests and that cost the hospitals. So what the hospitals, a hospital did, and I believe it was in Philadelphia, if I remember correctly now, I read this like, 8 years ago now. But anyway, that hospital cut that cost to their hospital by over half. So, these are the types of things that we really need to be discussing. I am so glad that we are working with Louisville Metro government. We're working with others to make sure that we're addressing the things that's the big issue in our community when it comes to keeping people housed. So I'm excited.
Well, I think you just got
I'm
signed
excited.
up for the fundraising committee.
I just got to say.
Shan, write that down. On it.
But there are others that are out here that will give to a cause like this. And we just need to keep our options open. We even had Levy at the table. I mean, we had everybody at the table. But all right. But then I had to leave. So it is me. All right. So we are grateful for this meeting today. We are at the end of our meeting. We're going to ask for a motion to go into our executive session. We will not handle any new business. We will not agree on anything in this, but we will have some discussion on our 3 topics, which may be real estate, litigation, or personnel discussions. All right. So may I have a motion to go into executive session? Amen. May I have a second? All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right. Thank you all for coming. Have a good day.
Meredith, I still think we'll be able to get you out.